faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
Hey everyone, this is Walter from iWalter. It is Monday morning now. It just turned Monday morning. Now, I have not, produced a podcast that's actually in one that is just audio. I try to do video podcasts, but honestly, I don't think they look that good. Maybe I have a better face, probably even a better voice for radio. I don't think I have either, actually. So I'm going to try this again. Now, I got myself a little bit of a pinch again with money, but I'm going to try to get myself out. I try to do like a nice, big, bulky gaming machine. I figured, hey, that's the best route to go for doing production work and some other video editing and audio editing. And it's not the case. Unless, you're going to use a gaming machine, computer, PC, for gaming, it's just a real waste of money. I just realized that. And I try to offer to some people to sell it off to, and nobody really wants it unless you give it to them for free. And I can't do that. That computer was really expensive. So I went with two, not just one, but I went with two little, they're called mini microcomputers. Now, meaning that they are so small, they fit in the palm of your hand. And they're actually really nice. One is I got both of them at this store called Micro Center over in St. David's. The one which I'm using now is running only Linux, and it's Linux that most people never heard of. It's called Ubuntu Budgie. Like the bird, it is. It's named after a bird. It's Budgie. So I'm running the latest OS on that, and I always noticed when I did podcasts in the past, I've tried different software, different hardware, meaning Mac, which does a really good job. Not as good as Linux, and I actually also tried to use Windows, and forget that. Windows is, for doing any type of production work, in my opinion, it's really bad. But, okay, Walter, you just said you have a Windows machine and a Linux machine. Yes, I do. Well, there is certain things Windows does a pretty damn good job with, and it's unfortunate because the reason for that is because a lot of people really don't invest much time or money or effort into a Linux software operating system. In fact, at this point, I think the increase was there was like a 50% increase on people using Linux. But that's saying they actually said, I read some, or watched some reviews. One person I like is Linus. And the guy's name is Linus. He's from Canada, and he does all these tech reviews. And Linus said I think it was him or somebody else said they want from 1% of people who use Linux all the time to 2%. So, yeah, that was like a 50% increase. But 1% to 2% is not enough for people to say, hey, you know what? We're going to start making more programs for Linux. Even though Linux is a rock-solid system and it's been around forever, because it's basically, it's derived from Unix. So, yeah, it is actually pretty rock-solid. There is issues that I really don't know how to fix on Linux. That's the only problem. Now, I cheat because I'm running Linux that comes with, they call a desktop GUI. Other people would call it a desktop, period. A graphical interface. And that's what I do. And the one I'm running right now, the reason I picked that, it's by a version of Linux that's called Ubuntu, which has many different desktops that you can choose from, Atmosphere. I chose one, the one I'm using now, that actually works a lot like my old Mac, when I was using Mac all the time to do my podcast. And even I noticed with the Mac, I had some issues. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth. But I remember a while back, I bought I think it was after I got let go from my other job, I bought a HP laptop, and I put Linux Mint on there. It was a version called Linux Mint. And that was great. But, and I hate to say it, it was perfect for making podcasts. It was like, yeah, I'd like to do it from my desktop. I hate having to set up the laptop, put a table, and throw everything on a little table in a small room, a living quarters that I live in. So that's why I went with a little mini box that is equal, has the same amount of power as my laptop, but it's on the desktop, and it hooks up to my nice 42-inch monitor. I mean, who wouldn't want that? So, yeah, so everything's in front of me. I don't have to go back and forth from a table to my monitor and things like that. So I like this. This is the first time I've done this, so I don't know how it's going to sound. I hope it sounds okay. Anyway, I better give a plug right this second. There's this piece of music my friend Matt gave to me, and I said, hey, do you got anything to give to me? I will use it, obviously, at the end of the show. I was actually going to put it in the beginning. I did not now. And I don't know how long it's going to be, but it was for a little musical piece he made for a horror movie, an independent horror movie that he had submitted. Some guy asked him to make some music, so he gave me a piece of his musical score for this film that I can put at the end of the show. So I want to thank Matt Torrance for that. It looks like it's titled He's a Killer. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Matt, that I mentioned that. So, again, yeah, there was things... Oh, well, my mouse is not working. Why is my mouse not working? So, there was things that I was running for like 2 weeks straight. I was running my Linux Ubuntu Budgie operating system. No problems. It actually works really well. You can even actually get Microsoft Office on this operating system because I got what's called Microsoft Office 365. So you can just log in and you can do all your paperwork online. It's on your desktop. I mean, it's not that bad. So the only thing was there's a couple things that do suggest you have Windows. One actually is iTunes, because sometimes I like to use iTunes on my desktop. I don't want to hook, even though the TV is like a foot away from me, from my computer, I'd rather just run everything on the computer because I can put it in a small window and watch a movie or TV show while I'm doing other tasks. Not that I'm doing that now, but I'm just saying it's fun. So it was iTunes. There's a couple games that I had. I got something called, over the years, it was called Steam, where you buy games and you don't ever lose them because they're on a server with this company called Steam, and you just download them whenever you want to play them. And you can do that with some Linux games, and actually the Linux games play games that were ported from PC to Linux run really, really nice and very fast. I'm not going to kid you on that. And it's not so sloppy as it is sometimes on Windows. But there was certain things that, hey, I guess I'm kind of stuck that things are only made for two operating systems. They're made for Windows, so you have to have a PC, or a lot of the programs, like 100% of the programs are made for Windows. About 90% of the programs that are made for Windows are also made for Mac. And probably that 2% is made for Linux. So that's a big, big difference. So, yeah, you're kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now, again, when you get things that people who work with Linux, they make something for that you want to use, you can do it yourself. I can't because I don't know how to write a program. I wish I did. Your option of doing it under Linux is like really 100% that you could do that. Like if you know how to write source code or how to write a program, yeah, you can do that under Linux. You can make anything because it's open source. So, and that's why the things that do run under Linux run really nice and really fast. But yeah, like I said, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because I don't want anything to jeopardize my Linux box, because otherwise I could dual boot on one machine and run both Linux and Windows. Now, there was a problem with this because I tried to do it with what was known as, for people who don't know, I was trying to run it under an AMD processor because I love AMD. I think they're great. They make great CPUs. They keep Intel, who makes the other CPU, honest. There was other companies, believe it or not, over the years who made their own processors. In fact, right now, Apple had officially made their own processor that is completely makes an Apple laptop or an Apple iMac 100% all Mac. There is nothing that is from any other competitor, meaning like Intel or anything else. It's all Mac from head to toe, inside and out. So that is pretty cool, but the problem with that is it's going to make them a little bit like, well, hey, we can set our price now. They're not doing that now. In fact, they're keeping the costs down because they want people to get hooked on Apple. I was on Apple for, I would say, a good long time, almost 20 years. Maybe not that long, but at least something like that. And I liked it. That's why I wanted a Linux box, because basically the Mac OS is it's actually Unix. It's a version of Unix. And was one made under Mac OS 10. Now, here's one thing I left a voicemail for somebody, because people kind of get confused. I do too. Windows decided, like, hey, we're just going to stop with the number 10. We're not going to make any other operating systems besides Windows 10. We're only going to update what we have. Well, actually, that's not true, because it is, even though it's labeled Windows 10, the name keeps on changing. The operating system keeps on getting updated more than just a little bit. So if you really look at it, it's not necessarily, minus that it's just a number game. OS X meant OS 10 for Mac. So Windows went the same direction. Okay, we're going to, if Apple stopped at 10, the number Roman numeral 10, we're going to stop at the number 10. Well, there's a difference, because Windows continues to update their stuff. My little Windows machine now is running what's called Windows 10, but it really is not. It's probably more like Windows 12 or Windows 11, but they're not going to say that. Now, Mac, they just gave up. They don't call it OS X anymore. They just call it OS. The brand new one they put out a few weeks ago, about a week, 2 weeks ago maybe, for Mac, is actually called Big Sur, S-U-R, Big Sur. That is the new operating system that was officially released. And there were some other ones that, Mojave or something like that. So they just gave up with the number game. They figured, you know what, it's not even worth it anymore, I guess. We're not going to call it OS X. We're going to call it Big Sur. And again, it's not like where you go down the beach. It's spelled S-U-R, and it's pronounced Big Sur. B-I-G for the first word, and S-U-R for the second word. Big Sur. So, they just gave up on the number game. I don't know how long it's going to take for Windows to decide, Microsoft, you know what, maybe we better go back to just calling it some like ridiculous name like we did before. Like when they did Windows Millennium or Windows Server or Windows whatever. Because they kept on changing their name. Windows Are You Experienced XP. They had some goofy names, and they decided to stick with Windows 10. But you got to remember, Windows is always changing. Yeah, you can go to the store, you're going to get Windows 10, but when you do all the updates, it's no longer really Windows 10, besides by name. It's kind of a stupid marketing scheme. It's almost like Intel, in fact, because Intel for years, and I used to work for Intel, I know this, they used to call everything Intel Pentium, and they used that name because they put so much money into that name that they used that for years and years and years. And then they went to Intel iCore, and that's going to probably stick around for a few more years, but they'll find some other way of marketing the name of Intel. One who always changes their names and is pretty good with it is AMD, actually, because their new ones are called, I want to say, no, not Xeon, because that's an Intel worded, branded name. Oh, God, I can't remember. I hate to screw up my system right now because, I don't know, I'm so used to Windows. But, yeah, the reason I kept Windows, there were certain things, and, yeah, one of it is, like, old games that I like. Hey, I can pop them up on this little mini machine. I can pull up officially have it on the desktop. I can have Office. I can run a couple programs that don't run very well on Linux. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. It just put me in a little bit of a financial hole, but I have that interest-free thing. Doesn't make a difference. I'm still in a financial hole, but let me see if I can find a name for AMD's processors. Oh, Ryzen. It's spelled R-Y-Z-E-N, Ryzen. So AMD constantly changes their names because they don't try to just market one name. They do market it for quite a while. So my other machine, the one is an Intel through and through. It's an Intel little mini box. And it, oh God, I can't forget what it's called a NUC. That's right, a NUC, N-U-C. And that's really nice because I try to explain it to a friend. The NUC, Intel in general with Linux. Linux used to have a lot of support. They still do for AMD, the processor AMD. But then they kind of like, okay, we're just going to go one direction for people like me who just want to run Linux and not have to be worrying about running the text prompt screen to do stuff in, the monitor screen or whatever you call it. I think it's called a text prompt screen. So, because I really don't know anything about it, and I honestly don't care. I should if I'm a big computer guy, but I don't. I know about hardware on computers, and I know how to work with that to a point, but doing into like really getting your hands dirty, no, I don't want to do that. And I mean like getting dirty into the OS and getting underneath down to the how to compile what's called a kernel or make a program by myself. I'm too lazy to do that. I'm not going to lie. So, if you want to do that under Linux, you can do it with AMD if you have a little bit of know-how, because you got to kind of massage the OS, in my words, to get the graphics card to work on there. Besides, it'll find your CPU, but it's not going to find your GPU. And the thing about AMD is they have a very kind of nice GPU built into their CPU. So you don't have to go out and buy a graphics card and a central processing unit because it's all under the same chipset. So it's great. It's called they call that a, oh God, APU, I think they call that. It's something like that. That means that there's both video and video and your CPU all on one disk on one chipset. It's really nice. Don't get me wrong. So yeah, you can do that, but you're going to get generic drivers for Linux, and it's going to run like garbage. So unless you know how to, again, massage it and get it to work properly the way it's supposed to do. If I could do that with AMD, hey, I would have been AMD 100%. And probably even run, well, I would say I would be running one machine. That's another thing. when you do a dual boot, you got to know how to set it up properly. I do not know how to do that either. That's why I'm running two small computers. One is Linux, and the other one is Windows 10. Two separate machines, two separate everything else. One is running Intel, which by default, Linux will have no problem with. It will set everything up for you, even graphics drivers. Because Intel is running one of their own, they're trying to get into the business of making their own graphics cards. They're not very good, but if you're using it for desktop purposes, you can get 4K out of the GPU in your Intel CPU. So that's not bad. And hey, that's actually great for me. That's fine. So why am I saying all this? Well, when I set up my Linux box, I wanted it to do what I'm doing now, podcasts. And I'm hoping that they will sound just as good as they did on my laptop. I think they will. I'm not sure yet, because it's the first one I've done, produced in quite a while, like as far as just audio only. It's been quite a few months. And the setup is relatively easy because everything is just plugs right into my Linux box. Now, the things I do run on Linux, if I'm just doing simple things, run really nice. But again, the Windows, there's other things you need Windows for. And the difference is, what I was starting to mention, the Linux box is running what's called an i7. There is what's known as an i9. And the big difference between an i7 and an i9 is one's a lot more expensive, obviously. The other thing is, one kind of uses or takes advantage of something that Intel has used for years, and it's called hyper-threading. And now, hyper-threading is, if you have I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible and go by the one I have in my machine, my Linux box. It's got 8 cores, 16 threads. So each core acts as though it's got not just one core, and those it acts like it doesn't have 8 cores. It acts like it has 16 cores, depending on the program you're using. If the program knows how to use 2 threads per core and uses it as an extra core, a virtual core, it'll act like as though you have a machine that's not running 8 cores, but actually 16 cores, even though 8 of them are not real cores. They're just threads. There's 2 threads per core. Now, it all depends on your operating system, for number one. Can it understand it or not? And number two, if it does understand it, and not only does the operating system need to know how to run these threads, which I can't really explain any better, and it probably would make no sense to you if I did, because it's a little bit more complicated than the way I'm explaining it. But if you have a program that takes advantage of having multi-threads, depending on the program, it's going to run a lot better. Now, technically, you want more cores than threads. But if you have a program, like a format, if you have a music program, or if you have a, what do you call it? Like, I'm trying to think, like a program that runs some type of like 3D rendering, like a 3D rendering program. A 3D rendering program, you're going to also need a good GPU. But if you have a program that will see and like take advantage of more cores and also more threads, it's going to outgleam on that particular program. It's going to run much more efficiently, much faster than one with less cores and less threads. So I don't know if I made that as simple as possible. I tried to. So one is you want more cores. If you get a laptop, a desktop, you want something where you feel comfortable spending the money that has the most amount of cores and the most amount of threads. So I have a Linux box It's got 8 cores but 16 threads. So if any program I put on my Linux box takes advantage of that thing that Intel called hyperthreading, it's going to go to town on it because it's got 8 cores, 16 threads. It's going to act as though it's got 18 virtual, well, it's going to think it's going to act, it's going to work as though it has 18 processing cores in that machine. So yeah, you definitely want that. Now, unfortunately, I made a pre-order from some company that was through like a Kickstarter thing that it's only you can buy these little mini computers that have AMD in there. Now, AMD, as much as it kind of works under Linux, will definitely work. Windows doesn't care. Whatever you throw at it, Windows will probably run it. And there's actually only 2 CPUs out there they have to worry about. It's AMD and it's Intel. And Windows has been around for a very long time. Linux has been around for a long time, but there's more people using Windows. So Windows is going to make stuff for people because their whole thing is to get people to buy the computers because they get a percentage of whatever that computer is sold at because their price tag goes on that manufacturer's computer. So, yeah, they're going to make sure it works with everything. And they have a larger market, and they're working to make more money. Linux is an open source free program. They're not making any money, so they can be they can be more nitpicky. They don't care. They do care on what they make, and one thing they're not going to do is try to appease a general audience of 2%. So the Windows 10, Windows Professional 10 that I'm running, 64-bit OS, is running on an AMD machine by ASUS, I believe is the name of the company. That one's not bad because that has built-in graphics on the CPU. I think it's the number is, it's called a Ryzen 5. They actually have anything from a Ryzen all the way up to a Ryzen 9. Now, the thing about AMD that's really, they have something actually called a Threadripper that they put out, AMD. I don't have that, but I'm trying to give you a little bit backstory on AMD. My AMD chip is an AMD 4500U Ryzen 5. It has built-in graphics by a company that they bought out years ago called Radeon Graphics. Radeon was a company, that was the name of a graphics card from this company from years ago that AMD bought the company out. It was a company from Canada that made graphics cards. And that was competing against another company called NVIDIA. So AMD wanted to make a CPU that had inside the CPU chipset it would have, or on the same processor, the I forget what you call that, the CPU. Not the actual chip of the CPU, but on the same die of that chip, there would also be a very high-end graphics card chip put on that same chip. So you would have, that's what they call an APU. It has both a graphics chip and a CPU all in the same core or die. Not the core. The core is actually the chips. I believe that's the way it goes. So, trying to explain that, AMD went one step further. They made something called the Ryzen, and then they also make one called a Threadripper. Ryzens are really nice. They're the lower end at this point for AMD on processors, because they make ones that are like even 12 cores and up on these AMD processors and have 24 threads. So it acts like it's 24 CPUs. They have ones called Threadrippers, and they have that name given to them because they have something ridiculous like 24 cores on a chip, maybe even higher, and then 48 threads. So that's unheard of. That's why it's called a Threadripper. Intel cannot keep up with AMD with their processors. Now, Intel, for the average Joe Schmo, is also slit their own throats by trying to cut their prices on certain things just to keep their head above water. Now, it all depends what you're doing. If you're doing basic desktop work, I would say go for the Intel chip because I hate to say it, it's cheaper. And it's equally just as strong if it takes advantage of what you're doing. If you're not playing games, you're just doing basic everyday stuff. Yeah, go for the Intel chip. Go for the i7. Go for the i9. I used to recommend to my friend Matt, i5, because i5 was the sweet spot. They have actually was an i3, but to me, I call that the glorified Celeron. It's the poor man's chip. Now, the i5 is not much better. It's not as good as it used to be, in my opinion. I would say go for an i7, i9, because they are both equally as good. If you have a little extra cash and you really just want to like rip programs apart, whatever you want to call it, then go for the Threadripper, AMD Threadripper processor, CPU, and you're going to have more horsepower than you need. It would be like buying probably like a Lamborghini to go to a job that you work right down the street from. You know, you're going to have big kahunas, but is it really worth the money? Probably not. You're just trying to show off at that point. But that's the difference. But yeah, my machines were cheap. They were like $300-$400 a pop. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But I put because I had spare parts laying around, so I had extra memory, and I just slapped in some laptop memory into both machines, 32 gigs on each. And one has a 1 terabyte, what's called an M2 drive. Another one has a 2 terabyte M2 drive. Now, what's an M2 drive? Well, let me put it this way. It's a little stick. It is actually just a little stick. It is like the size, I'm trying to look, like a little bit smaller than your index finger. And it's a memory stick, but it's a hard drive. So, believe it or not, you can get ones that are fairly like big. I think 2 terabytes are the biggest you can get right now. And if you remember, for a person who remembers running a conventional hard drive to running SSD, you could see like, whoa, everybody used to talk about SSD is the fastest thing. It just runs circles around hard drives. Yes, it does. Well, think of that mind frame and then take it the next step. Well, you take an SSD drive and you compare it to an M2, your speeds are the same again. Like, it makes an SSD look like it's really slow, and it's not. So you doubled or tripled or quadrupled your speed when you went from an HDD hard disk drive to an SSD, solid state drive. But when you go from a solid state drive to an M2 solid state drive, you've quadrupled your speed again and maybe even surpassed that. So on both my machines, my Linux box and my Windows box, the startup time is probably 2 seconds tops. Now, the Windows one's a little bit slower, but it's still like 2 seconds. So yeah, there's a big difference there. So performance-wise, M2 is the future. It is here now, actually, just to let you know. So I just told you everything on where I stand. I'm naming this episode, if I can find it, well, busy people, you know. If you want, so because my friend Matt told me this eons ago, and he kept on telling me, it's like, yeah, you know, hey, if I want anything done, I'm not going to go to somebody who was not busy or not doing that much, or why I wanted to call it that name, somebody who doesn't even have a job, because they're so busy doing nothing, and they are so filled with excuses of why they're not doing anything, that it just drives me insane. Like, how can you be so busy when you're not even working? You go and you shop all day. You're on the there's one person who's on the computer all day. Now, they do have a job, but they're on the computer all day. But they are extremely busy doing really nothing else besides playing video games all day. Or I know somebody who lost his job, and he's extremely busy watching TV shows, sports games, and taking his mother out every day to get stuff and figure out what they're going to eat for lunch or dinner. Really? That's busy? So, yeah, so I titled this episode, "If You Want Something Done, Ask a Busy Person." So, and it's true. Now, my friend Matt, you told me this a long time ago, and it's true. I mean, yeah, it seems like the most people who are so busy are the ones who have nothing going on at all. And it's really kind of extremely annoying. I'm not going to lie about it. So, yeah, it would make sense why I would call this episode that. Even though I just had spent 35 minutes talking about my little mini PCs. But you know what? I don't think that way. I think my friend Matt doesn't think that way. I don't know how to relax. When I'm at home, I'm clean because I live with my parents. I'm cleaning the house. I am dusting. I am organizing things. I am doing grocery shopping for myself and my parents with my money because they're always giving me money anyway because they appreciate the stuff I do for them. So, but as far as sitting there and spending hours upon hours just watching TV programs in the past because I need to marathon these. This is so important. No, that's not on my thing. And when I'm at work, I'm constantly running. In fact, I always get jokes by these younger managers. They say, yeah, Walter, you're doing like 10 jobs at once. And in fact, I'm not making this up, but there was a woman at work. She said, yeah, the one day you were out, there was 10 people who called out. And I said, really, 10 people? I don't think you can like let 10 people leave. It's only a maximum of 4. She said, no, it was Walter. You get the hint. The 10 people were me because I do at any given time, I'm doing the job of 10 people. But then you got like the people I know who are so busy and they're not even working or they just are looking for more Walter handouts. I might as well just put like myself in the label of being the government towards not you, Matt, but to other friends who look at me as a government handout. So, yeah, it's really irritating. I mean, I have enough going on in my life that I don't need to caretake and coddle grown people, grown men who don't want to grow up. They don't want to act like adults. They just want to act like children. Now, I get joked upon for the way what I watch or what kind of music I listen to or even my room. It looks like a big toy store. But when push comes to shove, looks can be deceiving because I'm the person who is doing multiple jobs, multiple tasks, bust my ass, and not sitting on it at any given time, except now because I'm doing a podcast for the past 40 minutes. Or is it the person who, not you, Matt, again, but who looks like Jabba the Hutt at this point because all you do is sit and feed your face? And I'm not talking about you, Matt. Trust me. But I know people like that, and I think you know who I'm talking about, Matt, and it's not you. You know who I'm talking about. Who, I'm just so busy. I got to do these Final Fantasy football leagues and stuff. Yeah, that's so important. Watching marathon TV shows. Ask me to mail you things that I've been trying to get rid of box sets of DVDs that I just don't watch. I don't have time to. I shouldn't have wasted the money, but I did on buying this stuff. Probably over $1,000 worth of DVDs, box sets of DVDs and Blu-rays. And a lot of times I just end up giving it away to people who I think, hey, they treat me like a human being. I'm going to show you my appreciation. You can have this. Don't worry about paying for it. But then there's other people, well, maybe you can just mail to me. Don't worry about it. You can pay for the shipping and the handling too. Let me think about this. Fuck you. No, I'm not. I mean, it just, that kind of stuff irritates me. So, anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just needed to blow some steam off. And also I want to make sure my Linux box is working properly. I hope it is. I won't know until I'm done. So, yeah, you know what? One thing I told my friend Matt tonight, Matt, I told you this on a voicemail, but I was really upset when my dad said he was watching 20 Minutes, and he's starting to feed into this nonsense about that Trump is a really bad person and it's a good thing he lost. It's like, whoa, did I just hear you say this? And in so many words or less, yeah, he said that. He believes that Trump is crooked now because 2020 told him that. I said 20 Minutes, I meant 2020. It's like, oh my God, this is really scary. I mean, I don't know. I'm holding on to a small grain of truth or hope, not truth, but all that too. That when push comes to shove and it comes around on December 14th, that Trump is going to push through and it's going to go to the Supreme Court and they're going to see, you know what, there is too much nonsense going on to let Biden become our next president. Or, you know, I forget the number now. I should know that, but I don't know. Because that would be really, really depressing. And I'm looking at, like right now, I'm looking at Trump's tweets because I figured, you know what, the only thing I watch anymore, and I watch it like religiously, is I'm looking at Trump's tweets because I'm tired of all the stupid nonsense bullshit that's been going on. And you know what? It went on with Trump for over 4 years. From the moment he got elected until now, it's been just nonstop BS. I'm so sick of it. So it's funny. His last tweet, which was 2 hours ago, he put it in caps. No way we lost this election. And you're right. And that was Trump. That was on Trump's Twitter page. So, yeah, I mean, you hear all this evidence against the Democrats and how it makes no sense to me either how Biden won. And the reason I'm saying that because Biden got less votes than Hillary. He got less votes than Obama did in his 2 terms. But yet he won and he beat somebody like Donald Trump who had, you know, they said during when the votes were being tallied in on the computers that there were so many votes coming in for Trump. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that the machine started acting up. They couldn't handle all the votes coming in for Trump. And he was winning that night up until the next morning when they said, oh, no, Trump didn't win, Biden won. It makes no sense to me at all. And, you know, there's a lot of nonsense coming off where I live in Pennsylvania where it's been proven over and over again, and not just like hearsay. I don't have anything in front of me, but here it's not hearsay that, you know, there was key witnesses who testified in Pennsylvania and said, you know, there was a lot of cheating going on. There was votes that were changed from Trump to Biden, and there was a woman right up the street from where I lived who voted, who complained it was on one of these press things. Now, I heard it was somewhere else, but it was in Pennsylvania. I think it was up the street from where I live. In Fairview, where she said, my vote, when I tried to feed in the machine, said I voted for Biden, not for Trump, and I marked it off for Trump. And they just ignore all this stuff. And that's one person, but there was like thousands upon thousands of people saying the same thing. Why is my vote going for a Democrat when I voted for a Republican? So, and I asked Matt, I said, okay, why did the Democrats, what was it, on Senate seats? Was it the Senate or the House? I can't remember. I don't want to screw anything up tonight because it's the first podcast and I didn't look for this information. How come they lost 9 seats, the Democrats? They lost 9 seats. Republicans lost like 1 or 2 seats. But they also gained 9 seats. I believe it was 9 seats. Maybe it was 8. So, again, makes no sense. Why would you vote for everyone else like myself who doesn't know any of these other people? I'm just voting straight Republican, and I'm especially because you had to hand write all that stuff in. And I used a cheat sheet. They gave you, like, if you're going to vote Republican, they gave you a suggested who you should vote for under Republican Party. So I did that. But I had no problem filling in, circling in with my pencil for Trump. And I'm sure other people are in the same boat I am. They don't really know who these other people are, but they definitely know who Trump was. But yet Trump didn't win, but everybody else on the Republican Party that you could circle in clearly got elected by a large margin. That makes no sense at all. So, anyway, enough of that. Oh, shit. Sorry about that. I didn't know it was going to open up and actually start playing. That was actually, this is me waffling with my political views, but I do like Taylor Swift, even though she's a leftist wacko who originally was born in Pennsylvania. But I was going to mention that she had something on iTunes, some type of special on her new album. Now, I do like her music. I'm not going to lie about it. I like her music. I don't have to like her political views. And that's the same thing even with Lady Gaga. Now, what they should do, both those ladies, is, who was it? There was, Goldie Hawn's boyfriend. What is his name? He mentioned that, hey, I'm not going to talk about politics. I don't need to voice my opinion on what I believe in my political views because I'm an actor. Well, these artists, these singers need to do the same thing. That means Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. Ladies, I love your music. I enjoy going to your concerts, but I don't need to hear your political views. I'm not spending money on you because I want to hear that Taylor Swift is going to support, or Lady Gaga is going to campaign for Biden. I could give 2 shits about that. I don't care about that. What I care about is listening to your music because I do enjoy your music. I still do. And unfortunately, I'm one of these suckers. I'm not going to give up something that makes me, that I enjoy listening to, which is their music, or seeing them in concerts. But unfortunately, yeah, I'm giving money. It'd be like giving money. I hate to say it. It's like giving money to, I don't know. This is a really bad analogy, but it'd be like giving money to Adolf Hitler. I know that's really bad of me to say, but I'm just saying. So, yes, I understand what I'm doing is for the wrong cause, but I do enjoy their music. I'm not going to lie about it. It's a guilty pleasure. I'm sorry, Matt. Anyway, I did see a couple of movies in the past couple of weeks, a few movies. And last movie I went to go see was that movie called Freaky, which was actually really good. I try to recommend to a guy I work with, a friend from work, dude, take your girlfriend, go see this movie called Freaky. It's actually entertaining. It's stupid, but it's very entertaining. So I told Matt I was going to go see it, and I kept on changing the day I was going to go see it. And Matt said, oh, thank God it's not a superhero movie. Well, guess what, Matt? I hate to tell you. I might see one more movie because I saw It's a Wonderful Life is playing at one of the movie theaters, and I've never seen the film yet. And I'd love to see that, especially at a matinee for $5. I'll definitely go see it. But other than that, maybe It's a Wonderful Life. I don't know if there's going to be other movies because, one, I don't have any money right now. I'm negative because of the mini computers, or as the people at work always joke about, the mini Johns. JAWN. But there is one movie I will see that's a superhero movie. I'm not going to lie about it in the movie theaters, and that's going to be Wonder Woman because I've been waiting so long for that. It's coming out on Christmas Day. So I'll be off on Christmas Day, obviously. I hope I am. I don't see anything different. But I definitely want to see Gal Gadot. I say Gadot. I don't know. I love to see. It looks really good. It looks really good. Her villain in this movie is actually Kristen Wiig, who's the villain, and she plays Cheetah, and it looks really, actually entertaining. So yeah, that's going to be another one of my guilty pleasures. And honestly, I don't care. I really don't care. I'm going to go see that. Hey, some bad news or some depressing news. It's been posted everywhere. In case, Matt, you didn't hear about this. Dave Prowse, the actor who played Darth Vader, had died at age 85. Who the fuck is Dave Prowse? Well, Dave Prowse, Matt, I'm glad you asked that, by the way. Even though you're not here, I heard you ask me, who's Dave Prowse? What are you talking about there, Walter? Dave Prowse is the very tall gentleman who wore the costume of Darth Vader. So, it's not James Earl Jones's voice, which actually, is another thing that is well known under the character of Darth Vader. But yeah, Dave Prowse is the gentleman who wore the costume. So I just wanted to let you know. He died at 85 just this past week. You know what? I was trying to look, and you know what? Probably when I'm done this show and I get it all put together, you know what I wasted about an hour on is because I'm not really familiar with everything on Linux. I was trying to find a damn program to make a little picture icon for on my Spreaker account that I can put up. That had taken me an hour, and I had to do a makeshift job just to get it to work. That's why I'm glad I have Windows too, because I can go under Windows and use that Paint Shop program, and any idiot can use that, which includes, or actually just means me, because that program is like idiot proof. Cut, paste, I'm good with that. So I kind of. Oh, by the way, for people who don't know, I've mentioned this to Matt to you a million times, but watch Pluto TV because they got the Blaze on there, the Blaze Network. Now, the Blaze Network is very costly because that's like Glenn Beck, Stu, that's his co-host on Glenn Beck's show. Stu has his own show now, too. And a couple other folks, conservative folks, who have TV shows and they have radio shows on the Blaze. And I can't afford that. So you go to Pluto TV. Pluto TV has the Blaze 24/7 for free on Pluto TV, and their channel is The Blaze. It's on Pluto TV. Simple, right to the point. I just made it very wordy. I'm sorry. So I've been watching like Stu's show. I've been watching a couple other shows, but mainly Stu. And if you get up in the morning and you don't want to just listen to Glenn Beck and you want to watch Glenn Beck live, you can watch him because he records his whole entire show, all 3 hours, on a camera, which you can get on Pluto TV under the Blaze, and you can watch him live. You can see him speaking into the mic and his host as well. So that's really cool. So, but what I've been doing, two people at work had mentioned to me about Newsmax. And I wasn't familiar with that because I got fed up. Actually, on election night, I was watching Fox. And I kind of noticed Fox started leaning a little bit to the left themselves. Like, they're not as pure and as wholesome as they used to be. And that kind of really got me got me really depressed. So I was like, yeah, I got to find some other source. I can't even trust good old, I can't trust Fox anymore. That's really bad. So I was definitely looking for something else. And lo and behold, two people at work said, well, you should try, why aren't you watching Newsmax? And I was like, because I honestly didn't know they existed. So when I found out about Newsmax, I've been kind of watching that like not 24/7, but every moment I can until I get to the point that they have like regular shows, documentaries on. And then it goes off. But besides that, that's pretty much what I'm watching all the time is Newsmax. Even on my phone, because Newsmax is everywhere. I mean, I'm watching in the bathroom. I'm watching it at work on my cell phone. I'm watching it in my bedroom. I'm watching it on my computer. So it's like Newsmax. Because that's the only thing I can actually trust anymore. So anyway, yeah, that's my recommendation. So anyway, going back to the Blaze, was an article I posted. I put up like 3 things real quick. And going to call it show so I can play Matt's little piece of music at the end. Trump, it's from the Blaze, a report. Trump considers launching 2024 campaign during Joe Biden's inauguration. So I guess at this point, Trump, as hard as he's been trying, and trust me, I'm glad he's doing it. I don't think Donald Trump is wasting his time. I think he needs to do this just to make people aware. So this corruption with people's votes does not happen, hopefully, again. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but hopefully people are going to be well aware of it. So if not, that's pretty bad. So, yeah, so he said he could do it. I just hope on the 14th, I started saying this, I did not finish it out. On the 14th, that they're going to say, you know what, the Supreme Court had taken or looked at this case. We have decided, because I think it's like, the way I understand it, it's one electoral vote from each state is given on the final decision if it goes to the Supreme Court. And it could go in Trump's favor, and I hope it does. Let me leave it at that. Anyway, it's funny. This past weekend, they put out what was called a PlayStation 5 officially. It came out actually earlier, but it was Black Friday, and there was none of them in stock. I know, I just changed the subject completely, but this is really funny. And there's also another game console that came out, an Xbox Series X, and they were both massively big. They're like the size. The one looks like a tower, a computer mid tower. Like it looks like it's black, and it looks like a monolith. The Xbox one. It actually does look like a monolith, and it's huge. Why? Thank you. The PlayStation is so massively big because they have this big cooling fan in there. It looks like your old VCR system. You know, the ones like Matt, remember John Gallagher when you used to take those classes with John Gallagher? And when you bought your first VCR and the thing was like freaking humongous. Well, the PlayStation's not that far off from the size of those old VCRs. Maybe not quite as big, but it's definitely running a close second on the massive size that they made these damn machines. And people, and I won't say which folks they are, but there is there's a certain gap or a certain culture of people who are so desperate to get their hands on a gaming console, not to get a job, but to get a gaming console. And no, I wasn't one of them. There was a story on Push. It's called pushsquare.com. PlayStation fans so desperate for a PS5 stock that they brought their beds to the GameStop. So they have a picture of some black gentleman who put his bed in front of the GameStop on Thanksgiving, and he slept there all night. Actually, there is 3 black gentlemen, and one of the guys actually had bought 2 of them. There was only 4 per store because I actually stopped by the GameStop just to sell some games off that I was not playing. So one guy is sleeping with 2. No, actually, there's 2 different guys. There's 3 altogether in these pictures, and they're all on Twitter. And each of them have 2 PlayStation 5s. And they're sleeping on their bed with there. The one guy has a bag full of drinks like sodas and stuff and it's a Wawa bag. I can see the Wawa emblem on there. It's a big grocery bag though. But yeah, all these gentlemen are black folks, and each of them have 2 PlayStation 5s. Now each one is $500. So, and the weird thing is, the consoles don't have that many games out for them. In fact, they may not have any games out, maybe 1 or 2. That's bad enough. But my thing is, why would you spend your Thanksgiving all day to sleeping in front of a store to buy a game console? I mean, I'm not even that bad. I remember back in the day when PlayStation used to be that way when my younger friend Trevor used to go, but he never went that far. I mean, they used to go there at midnight. Store would open for like an hour, maybe 2 hours at midnight. And it was just like, I guess, the whole fun of just, you know, the excitement of going out and trying to get your hands on a console. And but these guys, they brought their beds, put them in front of the store, and slept there for 24 hours. That's what it says. Fortunately for the sleepy pair in Norfolk, that's where this was from, this article I'm looking at, they got their next-gen console in the end. Above, it says they're pictured hugging their brand-new PS5s after camping outside for 24 hours. So each of them bought 2, and there's 3 different guys. 3 different. They bought 2 of them, and you know what they're going to do? They're going to sell one online. And I hate to tell you, a lot of times when you get something that's that brand new, it's just been developed and put out, it's going to have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. So I just think that, I mean, the effort they put into trying to buy a game console, you know, you could put into like looking for a job. I mean, I hate to say that, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, how foolish of me to think that way. But yeah, I just thought that was entertaining. Now, Matt, you're going to tell me, well, Walter, you know better. No, I would not sleep in front of a store for 24 hours. I don't care what it is, unless you're giving out like free sex, maybe with a hot woman. I might consider it. Now, you and I back in the past, Matt, we spend maybe 10 or so, maybe 5 hours camping out for Howard Stern. But I'll tell you, that was a little bit more exciting than camping out for some freaking game console that cost $1,500. And it's just going to sit there after a while, and you're going to forget about it, unless you don't have a job, and you know, which you and I, we both do. So I was going to say, if you don't have a job, yeah, then you have all the time in the world to play video games, which neither one of us do, honestly. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that story, because yeah, I definitely did. It's actually a little bit, it gets me peeved that this is what, if Biden gets in office, what kind of group of people are going to surface to the top, over top of a person like myself or Matt, who actually want to work for a living, want to better ourselves, and want to, you know, become, for lack of a better word, a useful citizen for our society, not some piece of sludge who just wants to play video games all day and say how busy they are. So anyway, yeah, that was actually, I did have another story, but it's just a recap. It's a different story on David Prowse, who died at 85, which I'm really sorry to hear that. It's a shame. The guy who played Darth Vader. So anyway, folks, I will entertain you more now, because I'm going to play this piece. I don't know the name of the film, but my friend Matt made, he was asked to make some music for a horror movie about a killer mime. Did I say that right? A killer mime. So I have no clue about this movie. Matt told me, the guy asked him to do it. And hey, dude, I give you a thumbs up for doing it. I honestly did not listen to the piece yet. I will be listening to it at the same time everybody else does. Everyone have a good week. Who knows? I might try to do podcasts when. I have no clue, because this one's over an hour. And enjoy Matt's piece of music. And everyone have an excellent night.